The Steam Deck is the most amazing piece of hardware I have ever owned. And I've been doing this gaming thing since 1999, which is starting to be some time ago by now. And even though the Steam Deck is a new machine, talking about the good old days is 100% on topic here, as this machine, more than any other, has allowed me to bring my childhood gaming memories and nostalgia with me wherever I go. I'm gonna give it to you straight in this video, and give you my honest impressions of this revolutionary handheld device. This is the Steam Deck. I've always been a fan of handheld consoles. I owned the Game Boy Color, absolutely loved my Game Boy Advance SP, before I later got my hands on the PSP, the PS Vita, and finally, the Nintendo Switch. All of these had games specifically made for them which you couldn't get anywhere else. But as time went on, handhelds began more and more to mimic home consoles in terms of their games. And to me, that's been a bad thing, especially with the Nintendo Switch, where the hardware was outdated even on the eve of the console's launch. Enter the Steam Deck, the console that's not really a console, the PC that's anything but an unwieldy tower, and the handheld I never thought I'd actually buy. But here we are, and let's get right into why that actually is. At first glance, the Steam Deck might seem rather unwieldy. It's a giant compared to the much smaller Nintendo Switch Lite, for example, obviously the smallest and lightest of the Switch models, making it decidedly heavier for prolonged handheld gaming sessions. What it might lose in portability, it absolutely makes up for with that massive, beautiful, bright screen. The home screen itself is easier to navigate, and even though it might just look like regular old Steam, there is something about the larger game banners that just feels so much better and inviting than the boring old games list on the desktop. I personally went for the 512GB model, which comes with the anti-glare screen, and I absolutely love it. It might not be OLED, and like every other Steam Deck model, it runs at 800p seeing as this is a 16:10 screen, but at this size, it's gorgeous. Hardware-wise, we have a controller-like setup, but with some extra flavor. We have two touchpads which allows for things like simulated mouse movements, and which include a nice rumble sensation when used. We also have 4 back buttons for extra input possibilities. I personally have these turned off because I mostly hit them without meaning to, which can lead to awkward situations. Finally, we have the Steam button which allows us to navigate our libraries and the OS itself, and the Quick Access button, which hides some absolutely mind-blowing settings which we will dive into shortly. And with that, let's get to the games themselves. When everything is said and done, the games and the Steam Deck's ability to run them is why I am so blown away by this thing. But before I say more, I just want to make one thing clear. No, the Steam Deck is not going to be a handheld PS5, and it can't compete with an RTX 4090. When it comes down to it, the Steam Deck is comparable to a medium-spec PC, or indeed somewhere between the last generation PS4 and PS4 Pro consoles. The difference is that the Steam Deck is built with more modern hardware though, which allows it to draw even more power out of those games. And with that little disclaimer behind us, let's get to the real meat of this video. If I had to describe the Steam Deck, it would be that it's the perfect nostalgia and backlog machine. And I mean backlog. The reason is that for a machine that's about on par with last-gen consoles, you won't necessarily be able to run the most demanding new games at 60 FPS. But, and this is key, the Steam Deck has absolutely surprised me with its performance. The first game I ever tried on this thing was Elden Ring itself. Now Elden Ring is beautiful, actually quite demanding, and even suffers from known bad optimization on both PC and consoles. But on the Steam Deck, running mostly on medium and high settings, Elden Ring actually runs at around the 30 to 40 FPS mark. Now variations in frame rates are obviously not optimal. Luckily, Steam Deck offers an absolutely amazing feature, namely not only a native frame rate cap, but perhaps more importantly, a hardware refresh rate setting allowing us to change the screen's max output of hertz. In other words, in the case of Elden Ring, by setting the max frame rate to 30, we can essentially lock the game to not output anything higher. This might sound weird since we obviously want more frames per second, but again, a high variation in frames often looks and feels much worse than a lower, stable frame rate. Now, Elden Ring runs at a mostly stable 30 frames per second at settings which retain its beauty, and being able to play a current-gen AAA game like Elden Ring in my hands is nothing short of mind-blowing. But let's look at an actually demanding game, one that even my gaming PC struggles with almost 5 years after launch, Kingdom Come Deliverance. This is a deep and gorgeous RPG, and a game which has yet to receive any next-gen update. At mostly medium settings, the Steam Deck struggles to keep a stable FPS, and is nowhere near keeping a stable 60. But let me show you the real magic of the Steam Deck. Even more powerful than the frame rate cap is the refresh rate cap. The Steam Deck normally caps out at 60 Hz, but we can lower this to 40, meaning frame rates are delivered in a different fashion altogether. By lowering the refresh rate to 40 and capping the frame rate at 40, Kingdom Come Deliverance suddenly runs at a mostly stable 40 FPS, which, and take my word for this, feels like a totally different league away from 30. Such a beautiful and massive game at mostly steady 40 FPS at these settings on a handheld is insane to me and absolutely provides a much better experience than even the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X ever could, especially seeing as both of these were capped at 30 FPS. The deck even holds a mostly stable 40 in the extremely demanding Skalitz town center area, which just, yeah, it's good stuff. But what about one of my top 3 favorite games of all time, The Witcher 3? Well, this unbelievably beautiful game, which was hailed for being able to run at below the lowest settings on the Switch, runs not only at 800p on the deck, not only on a mix of high and max graphic settings, but also at a mostly locked 40 FPS, or even higher if you're willing to compromise on the visuals. In many ways, 40Hz and 40 frames per second is the new magic number and the new 60 FPS on the Steam Deck. And this refresh rate modifier completely opens up possibilities that would otherwise be impossible. Take the remaster of the legendary Skyrim. This game, up until the next-gen console patch, ran at a mere 30 FPS on the PS4 Pro and Xbox Series X. But on the Steam Deck, thanks to the refresh rate setting, I can run Skyrim at high settings at a mostly locked 50 FPS. And again, it looks terrific. Compare that to the Nintendo Switch version, for example, which only a few years ago was praised into the heavens for running on a handheld, despite looking absolutely terrible, and running at a high of only 30 frames per second. Now take into account that as a PC, you even have modding capabilities on the Steam Deck, and we have a completely different experience altogether here. Take even the relatively new remaster of Crysis. That game only the most hardcore of gaming PCs could run, and the Steam Deck manages to hold a mostly stable FPS at medium settings, still looking amazing.
We spotted KPA patrols down on the beach. Use your binocs to tag them before you run in blind.
I see a large transmitting array. That must be the jamming station.
Or what about the vast Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord? Once again, 40 FPS medium settings come to the rescue and allow us to deliver an experience that is so far beyond what I've ever imagined a handheld console be able to pull off. Elsewhere though, 60 FPS and high settings is well within reach. Dark Souls Remastered is smooth as butter at 60 FPS max settings, once again absolutely trashing the 30 FPS PS3-like experience on the Switch. Even Dark Souls 2 Remastered runs at a mostly locked and stable 60 FPS at high settings, showing off Majula in all its glory. Hardware can only do so much though, and Steam Deck won't fix bad optimization by itself. In a game like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, locking the game to 40 and medium to high settings is likely the best bet, as this PC port was rather bad to begin with. But still, Steam Deck pulls it off and delivers a better experience than what the PS4 Pro offers even now. This act of pulling things off is the magic spice, that special sauce, that chemical X of the Steam Deck, and is ultimately what makes it so mind-blowing. Because get this, the Steam Deck allows me to play games like The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion at max settings on the go, with actual controller support thanks to the amazing community controller layout upload feature. This allows users to create templates for gamepads. In other words, a game like Oblivion, which has no native controller support on PC, is actually playable with a controller on the Steam Deck. The same goes for games like Battlefield Bad Company 2, which normally has no controller support, but which is playable on the Steam Deck. This little miracle of a machine even plays strategy games, allowing you to play PC-exclusive games like Total War on the go. It might be a tad more cumbersome than on a regular PC, but keep in mind that it is possible to connect the Steam Deck to a mouse and a keyboard. But even without it, it's possible to configure the controllers to your preference, and get the optimal Total War on the go experience with no feature compromises. A game like Napoleon Total War runs at smooth frame rates at high settings on the campaign map, while mostly staying around 30 to 40 FPS on the battle maps, which honestly is very bearable and probably even when I played this game out when it came out. Seeing as it can be a bit harder to manage units on the handheld, I found the Gunpowder Total Wars of Empire and Napoleon to be the best fits here. But even a game like Rome Remastered runs perfectly well. Perhaps the real challenge here is to read the UI, and I'm a bit sad that even Rome doesn't have better UI scaling than 120% here. But that is something a smaller screen just can't be made responsible for. Honestly, even a game like Crusader Kings 3 is made playable on this thing. This is actually also when that larger UI size comes in handy, as it helps navigation immensely. Now it is possible to navigate this menu with a touchpad as a mouse, but I have no idea why Paradox has yet to provide that console controller support for either Crusader Kings 3 nor Stellaris, as that could seriously come in handy right here. What cannot be underestimated, and the reason why I can't talk about all of these games on the very same console, is that this is the Steam Deck. Steam itself is the basis for this machine. Every game you've ever owned is technically available for you to play on this thing, even though they might not be officially supported, which Valve very conveniently tells you about before launching a game for the first time, and by various icons. This means that if you have invested into your Steam account over the past decades, you are likely to have a gaming library of dozens if not hundreds or even thousands of games available right from the get-go. And in these days of non-backwards compatible consoles, like again, the Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck offers pure joy here. There are just so many titles which Steam Deck manages to breathe new life into simply because playing these games on handheld feels so right. And the common denominator is that these are often a bit older games that will run very well. All of my favorite Final Fantasy games may be run on here, for example, including Final Fantasy IX with the amazing Morguri mod, by the way, for crisp new visuals, the Final Fantasy X and X-2 remasters, and even though it might not be my favorite, it ran Final Fantasy XIII at a locked 40 FPS, and this game really is a great handheld game. Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning runs at a locked 60 FPS and feels amazing, and is such a good RPG to have readily available like this. And I never thought I'd be able to play LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga on the go, which, again, runs flawlessly. Or what about Persona 4 with its fantastic atmosphere and soundtrack, or Pixel Junk Monsters, the most charming tower defense game ever made? And remember the times of dedicated, crappy handheld Assassin's Creed games? Well, those times are behind us, as we now get the actual mainline games from that beautiful PS3 era directly on the Steam Deck in gorgeous 60 FPS and max graphics. Steam Deck is just that perfect chill gaming console that allows you to play the games you're nostalgic about at great performance, while for example lounging on the couch. While it might sound crude, the Steam Deck is kind of the perfect machine for games you just never choose or haven't gotten around to play on your desktop or console, and it can therefore even serve as a kind of offloading machine as well, because here you'll actually want to take them with you and play. And even though I have yet to travel with it, that's another major reason to choose the deck over other handhelds. I know I've talked about my mind being blown away a few times already, and it's only because this machine is so many leagues beyond those from any other popular handhelds out there. With that being said, the aspect that blew my mind the most, and I mean still continues to shock me to the core, are the emulation possibilities on this here beautiful Steam Deck. The simple fact that I, a humble boy born in the blissful 90s, can now actually play some of my favorite games ever from various consoles throughout time on one and the same handheld is nothing short of astonishing. I mean, just look at this. Here I am, in 2022, playing Pokemon Yellow, Fire Red, Emerald, and even Heart Gold on one and the same machine, with the possibility for the latter to switch between the different 3DS screens, which also makes that 3DS version of Ocarina of Time playable. I cannot express to you how beautiful these old Pokemon games look on the Steam Deck, as a combination of the screen brightness, colors, and the aspect ratio fits so much better with that old 4:3 format than a 16:9 format would, and makes these classic titles pop like never before. But it doesn't end with the best Pokemon games. We're talking Digimon on the PS1 in the shape of the fantastic and immersive Digimon world, Digimon on the PS2 with Rumble Arena 2 in a game that beats out Super Smash any day of the week, the best of the Harry Potter games on PS2 which were so darn good, those perfect Lord of the Rings games which I spent so much time in racking up levels and perfect kill streaks, the Jak and Daxter series with just the time I spent in these as a kid, man, the same goes for Ratchet and Clank, and yes, even PlayStation 3 games basically lost to time, like the amazing Heavenly Sword which I cannot believe has not been remastered yet, and ditto goes for the best racing/rally game of all eternity and until it is remastered, MotorStorm. And let's not forget about a certain other emulation game as well. Of course, all of this emulation beauty is only made possible by the continued and dedicated work of the regular Joes and folks at home, who continue to maintain the emulators themselves and make them better every year. And a very special shout out to EmuDeck here, which essentially contains all of the main emulators in one simple install package. Reddit as well has been a major source of knowledge in terms of which settings to use and how to tweak things. In other words, the user base of the Steam Deck is vital to my enjoyment of it, and it really goes to show how dedicated the user base really is. I have to admit that even though the Steam Deck can be enjoyed as it is right away, without ever really fiddling with the deeper details and machinery, The true deck experience comes from unlocking its potential like I have shown in this video. After all, this is a PC, which is why we're not only having those amazing refresh and GPU clock speed settings, but also a dedicated desktop mode, where you can download a variety of helpful applications and programs, like you would on a regular desktop PC. I spent virtually my entire first 1 and 2 days with the Steam Deck just downloading and testing games and getting my emulators up and running. And even though it was complicated at times, online guides and YouTube videos helped me out every step of the way. And it's honestly been a joy realizing that, with the help of the community, I managed to make the Steam Deck my favorite console ever. And yes, I am calling it a console, and that's final. Now, the Steam Deck is not perfect. With great power comes great battery life drainage, the ancient Norwegian adage says. And it is true that Steam Deck kinda sucks here. Playing any sort of modern demanding game, say from the PS3 era and upward, will drain your battery life in between 1 and 3 hours. Compared to the Switch's 4 to 7 for example, that is abysmal. But the Steam Deck does have a secret up its sleeve. When playing older games for example, which demands way less power, the battery can actually last you a good 5 or 6 hours, which all of a sudden is much more palatable. In addition, by tweaking graphic settings and even the hardware settings from the quick access menu, we can also prolong the battery life in more modern games. You can always look for tips and tricks for how to best optimize these even on a per game basis, and I do recommend checking that out if you feel like your battery is a bit on the shorter side. What's more though, is that not everything seems to just work as it were. Certain games that are supposed to be actually verified to work with controllers, like Ryse Son of Rome, do not respond at all to me. Only the mouse support seems to work, but the gamepad itself does not, and I have absolutely no idea why. However, after some trials, I actually and happily made it work by going into the game's properties and changed the compatibility settings. Finally, the controllers worked, but this is an extra step I shouldn't have to make with a verified game. But just look at how good this game looks though, arguably looking and running better than the Xbox One version. Additionally, even though you can theoretically play virtually every Steam game on the deck, the vast majority are not 100% verified even though they will work. But many still do not work at all with the gamepad. Some games will work with community inputs, like Battlefield Bad Company 2, but they only work insofar as the controls are mapped to actual keyboard keybinds, and can feel a bit awkward compared to the actual console experience. And speaking of Battlefield, if you're heavily into first-person shooters where precision is key, the Steam Deck joysticks are sadly mostly terrible at giving the same smooth feel like the regular PS5 or Xbox controllers. There's something about the stick that just moves too fast or too slow or too easily, and you are just never going to get that same precision. I believe it comes down to either the resistance or the size of the joysticks, but either way, it just barely works to make things playable, but not really enjoyable. I actually found that using the trackpad gave a better experience than the joystick, even though it was quite cumbersome and awkward to control the game like this over time. Even worse is sadly the overhanging fact that certain games from for example Ubisoft or EA will demand that Steam fire up separate launchers for these titles, with all that entails. Playing virtually any Assassin's Creed game for example will have you spend time automatically launching Uplay, and then demanding that you insert your Uplay password every time you play, because that's how Uplay works for certain older titles now for some reason. Due to EA updating their launchers, many EA games that demand the app now simply won't work as I understand it. So keep this in mind. Having to launch multiple apps for just one game has always frustrated me, but it's never been so immediately nauseating as it is on the Steam Deck, and shows how beyond idiotic it is to demand the use of several launchers, especially if you've already bought the game on Steam alone. It must also be said that depending on your deck variant, your library will be limited. I cannot in any sense recommend the 64GB version of this console, and can only really recommend the 512GB version, as even 256 is just not enough these days. I have additionally added another 512GB of storage through a micro SD card, so at least the deck is easily expandable, no matter the model. But again, I would not under any circumstance have my internal storage be less than 512. I have owned a lot of consoles, both handheld and stationary, from across the console space, meaning PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Some of my absolute favorites were the Game Boy Advance SP, the PlayStation 2, and the original chunky PS3, but none of them have blown my mind quite like the Steam Deck has. Yes, it has a few shortcomings, among them battery life, the sometimes loud fans when playing demanding games, and the need to dedicate time to get the most out of it. But if you are prepared for those, then you're in for perhaps the most revolutionary handheld gaming device, or honestly, the most revolutionary gaming device period, then the Steam Deck will not let you down. I'm still baffled by its versatility and power. Its massive screen is a game changer, And although it's not OLED, it's as beautiful and bright as they come. Moreover, the audio speakers are powerful and honestly surprisingly loud and clear. But if you need to keep things silent, it even hooks up to devices like the Apple AirPods via Bluetooth, and they were extremely easy to connect. Its PC foundations allows it a versatility like no other. And if you know what you're doing, or dedicate the time to learn from others, which honestly doesn't demand all that much, you're in for the best nostalgia machine of your life. But even new games can be enjoyed here, especially if you are willing to take advantage of the easy-to-use built-in refresh settings. In other words, and if I hadn't made it clear yet, I love the Steam Deck. It's so much fun to pick up and use, I have become completely enthralled by its possibilities, and it has allowed me to experience those older games of mine like never before. Of course, older is relative here, and my use of the word varies from the likes of Pokemon Fire Red to Ryse Son of Rome and even Kingdom Come Deliverance. For more modern games, I find that it's a fantastic machine, especially for a bit less demanding games, like the absolutely charming Tunic or the newly released Chained Echoes RPG. And so, I am in love with this machine and cannot recommend it enough. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go kiss my wife, pet my kitten, lay on the couch, fire up Pentiment, and finally check out what this little gem is all about. Cheers.